so much of our history is wrapped up in these buildings. The art in our churches, the stained glass, the tombs in the graveyards, all these have formed what we are, and so they're very important. I've got 5 churches, 4 parishes, which means quite a lot of services on Sunday. And they're all Grade 1 listed buildings. They're all 14th century or thereabouts. When I arrived in 2001, the other churches were operating fine, but poor old All Saints had effectively been closed. It was dangerous. The thought was that it may have to be declared redundant, although how you do that to a Grade 1 listed building is a bit hard to imagine. So we decided, no, we're going to do something about this. And we found, and this is a remarkable tribute really to English heritage, that one of my predecessors had actually managed to get a grant in 1999. It had never been activated. So we went back to English heritage and said, do you remember that dusty old grant that's lying in a drawer somewhere? And they did. And they actually, as it were, made the grant again, or made it for the first time to us. And so that started us off. And that got the roof of the chancel sorted. And we began there and crept down the church. So we decided to show the village that this church was coming alive again. So on All Saints' Day, we had an all-night vigil. We sold hundreds of night lights, with candles lighted round the church, inside and out. People could see that the church was coming alive again. And I think that started us off on our great quest to bring it back to life properly.
The major problem in here was the damp. And as the paint has flaked off the walls, and we started noticing that there were other bits of colours underneath. We called in the diocesan paint expert. I was very excited because these are Victorian dados and friezes. They will be cleaned up and restored, and then I think they have plans to put a clear film of some description over them to actually preserve them then. When it's finished, it's going to look absolutely wonderful. When you take on something like this, the biggest mistake is to look at it as a whole. You have to imagine it in bite-sized pieces. Then you can see a way clear. If you continue to look at it as the big whole, then it's just insurmountable. It is a wonderful building. It's just had a very sad recent history, and I think it's incumbent upon us to sort of try and put that right. The church has been here since the 12th century, and for this tiny weeny portion of its history, it's our responsibility. It's a privilege to be part of it and to try and make a difference.
Well, now here at St. Helens, the story is different because this church has always been looked after in a pretty active village in terms of church activities. It's always had a stability in terms of its parochial church council, and its rectors have been careful and devoted. There's never been anything fundamentally wrong. What they decided to do was to clean and restore the whole of the interior, starting at the sanctuary, which is the Victorian Gothic Revival Bodley Sanctuary, and then moving down the nave and ending up in the tower. But also the medieval angel ceiling, which is absolutely beautiful. And that's been done over the course of the last 20 years. The villagers do get involved in, even those who don't come to church. Most of them would recognize that's, as to use a much overused word, that's an icon of our village. And so we wanted to be there, not to go to, but to have. We hope they'll come as well, of course. And so it's not just the PCC, it's the whole village which gets involved in the maintaining of buildings such as this. Each parish is responsible for its own finances, but collectively we owe a sum of money to the diocese. But they've also been marvellous in terms of supporting each other. When there's a patronal festival, everyone goes to that church and supports it. So every so often that moves round. It means that everyone is part of something bigger. And I think that's quite important. No parish in the rural areas can exist on its own. But together, perhaps, we can stand united. The parish priest always has a dilemma, because you are ordained to the cure of souls, not of buildings. There's no mention when you're ordained that you're going to be in charge of a Grade 1 listed building, or worse, 5 or 20 Grade 1 listed buildings. But nevertheless, you realise that is a responsibility that goes with the job. Yes, it makes it a busy life, but very exciting to be part of really the historical process of England. You know, these places go back 700, 800 years, so you are walking in the footsteps of your forebears.